Hello, today we're going to be speaking about storytelling as a perspective of leading and managing change. This encompasses research and organizational storytelling. Throughout the years, stories have been used for multiple social purposes, from framing the social order and law, inspiring the creative, fueling the romantic, to justifying wars. Gabriel defines the first use as analytic interpretations aimed at uncovering the deeper meanings of a narrative, and the second as poetic interpretations seeking to infuse facts with meaning. Storytelling is the most universal human activity. It is implanted in almost everything we do as individuals and as businesses. Moreover, it is fundamental attributing meaning to the incoming information provided by narratives and stories through the sense-making perspective. Sandberg and Toshka explain how sense-making is homologous to organizing in the form of cognitive cause maps. This method of organizing consists of making sense of stories and narratives by splitting life experiences into significant segments, identifying them, and linking them. Sense-making has two outlooks, the cognitive and the constructive. Cognitive sense-making develops in actors' mind through forming cause maps of a common situation. In the constructivist version, actors enact a world through the usage of language, as they engage with a puzzling situation at hand. Overall, sense-making involves concentrating on noticeable cues of an evolving situation and turning them into a narrative. Here is a live example.
Hello, babe.
In this scenario, based on the words "hello babe" and Camila to the right sobbing, Manuel to the left believes she has broken up with her boyfriend. However, there could be another explanation behind this situation. For instance, her boyfriend has been in a car accident and his mom is notifying Camila through his phone. As humans, we seek to deliver our sporadic and frequently complicated experiences with a sense of rationality by organizing the events of our lives into stories. We compose this heroic narrative of the self in order to illustrate essential truth. However, narrators foresee what their audiences want to hear, and these expectancies affect what they say and how they say it. According to Pastopathy, many investigators argue that any narrative expression of the self cannot be understood outside of its assumed context. This involves the listener and the audience. The story is designed to make a point to achieve the storyteller's desired effect. In brief, just like Mike Adams said, we are all tellers of tales.
People who are being studied and interviewed by researchers are subconsciously influenced by this observation. This is the influence of researchers. This means the results that are recorded are skewed. The way in which the subjects provide narratives to the researchers is usually framed to portray oneself in a certain way. This was shown in the Hawthorne effect during the light performance studies, where it was shown that it wasn't a change in light that affected performance, but the fact that the people were being observed. This means that there is a strong relationship between the person observing and the people being observed. It is a relationship that is based on persuasion and perception. We will see in the following situation how persuasion and perception are affected.
Okay, so to conclude today's interview, can I actually get a point from yourself? A characteristic that summarises you as a person.
Of course. I would say that I'm a very understanding and helpful individual.
Okay, fantastic. That actually concludes today's interview. I'd like to thank you both very much. Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm struggling with my project. Can you please help me?
No, you're grown up enough to do that by yourself.
In this situation, we can see that the people talking to the observer are manipulating what they are saying. They are trying to persuade him of a certain way. The girl on the left is saying that she is very helpful. However, it is proven later that it is a lie. All sciences can be analyzed as form of narratives because they are reflections of the researcher's interpretation of the world. Anthropologists and psychologists are two groups that are notably relevant in this context. Their analysis is based on human behavior, and their analysis is subsequently tainted by their own. This is because they observe a dual nature. They are observers of the human behavior, and they also exhibit human behavior. The researcher's method of presenting evidence can be seen as a narrative, both in its content, delivery method, and representation of the truth. The behavior of researchers and their investigations are made up of many elements: the assumptions made during the investigation, the parameters used to observe subjects, the wording of results, the content omitted in the closing discussion, and limitations. Therefore, a researcher's account can never be the truth. It is merely an interpretation of the topic at hand. This interpretation can differ from reality due to natural limitations of the research process, or be the result of information manipulation theory. IMT means deliberately breaking one of these four topics of quality, quantity, relation, of manner of the information. In this way, people tend to think that numerical accounts cannot be biased as verbal ones are. This, however, is false. We can see this because in this graph, numbers are very easy to manipulate. The scales used show that the one on the left exhibits significant variation, but the one on the right remains flat. However, when we look closely at the two graphs, they are showing the same evidence. This means that the scales are used to omit evidence and prove the point the researcher is trying to make. Because of this, storytelling as such is not commonly used in research. It is because stories tend to have different meanings based on the way they are told. In research, factual bases are often preferred, which has led to the development of logical scientific communication. LSC is non-contextual. It is based on the same information regardless of the way it is phrased. The omission of certain details is necessary for the creation of a summarized information pack like a report, or to convey a certain message to a non-scientific audience. Think about Bill Nye, the science guy. This reduction in information does not impact the message negatively, and as such, it is a narrative method that is commonly used by researchers. However, education as a social science often uses stories to illustrate situations and facilitate understanding. Fields such as history can easily be translated into powerful stories that serve as examples, whilst conserving the message the teacher is trying to convey. Other sciences could rely on this ability to make meaning when delivering information to others, and the researchers would benefit from adopting this strategy because it would draw the audience in. In this way, you can be facilitating understanding by adapting your content to the previous knowledge of the audience and by transmitting your core theories. But you are also improving sense-making by adapting your delivery, that is, by changing your tone and verbal nuances, and by the introduction of examples and gamification.
So, what is organisational storytelling? Well, outlined in a research paper by Gill, storytelling can be defined as a process of developing and delivering an organisation's message through using narration about people, the organisation, the past, visions of the future, social bonding, and work itself in order to create a new point of view. It can also be used to reinforce an opinion or behaviour in the workplace. Organisational storytelling is essentially a form of sense-making that can be used in an organisation. Through storytelling, we are able to create meaning in situations, allowing us to understand what has happened and what may happen. However, storytelling shouldn't be used exhaustively as a tool which is used for sense-making. Often, business decisions can instead be explained through rationalistic or legalistic explanations. For example, someone may have been dismissed due to breaking a company policy, and therefore dismissed for this simple reason. In addition to these points, it can often be found that businesses will utilise tools such as strategic planning, scenario analysis, and dilemma resolution instead. These tools often conflict with storytelling as they are rationalistic and business-focused. An organisation may use scenario analysis to identify a possible future and therefore take action based on this. Businesses may, however, choose to use storytelling in order to drive change. According to Gabriel, organisations aren't natural storytellers, with businesses often focusing on models and rational explanation. However, if used effectively in an organisation by leaders, managers and CEOs, it can have a transformational effect. Asked by Denning is, how is a CEO to make effective use of storytelling? Well, effective storytelling can be difficult to utilise. However, they are experts that many businesses use to help them make change in an organisation. In the Australian branch of Ericsson, professional storytellers were introduced alongside a longitudinal study of practical storytelling. It concluded that after 3 years, the use of storytelling was able to turn the business around in order to outcompete competitors. Through effective use of storytelling, leaders are able to satisfy many different business needs. For example, employee engagement is suggested to increase when stories are told about work life, and it allows employees to co-create their experience at a company. A second of these is the use of storytelling in goal creation. Through prophesizing the future of the firm, especially when the goal is aligned with the firm, it can actually result in employees being motivated toward a common goal. The final of these is transmitting values. This is a way in which storytelling aims to drive change. Transmitting values can ultimately lead to employees having a good understanding of their organisation's values and work practices, which in turn leads them to become important assets of the company. Storytelling can also be found to be more engaging and an appealing way of transmitting business values to workers.
If we take an overall look at the advantages and disadvantages of storytelling, one of the advantages is that it involves supporting people and organizations to manage change and decision making. According to Brunner and Wake, narrating lived experiences help individuals to comprehend real-life situations and anticipate upcoming issues. Likewise, Clenny states that stories are an effective knowledge source for decision making in critical contexts. Therefore, interpreting stories and making sense of fact effectively serves to manage change and evaluate judgments. Also, storytelling is a useful resource for organizations. It exposes unknown details, creates unmanaged spaces, offers of support, and gives warnings. Gabriel says narrative processes can reveal numerous aspects of organizational operations, which are either invisible or opaque. In addition, he argues that the importance of stories in organizations lies precisely in their ability to create symbolic spaces, where the control of facts, information, and technical rationality can be challenged or sidestepped. In this way, storytelling is a fundamental process that helps us understand and explain organizational life. Another advantage of this theoretical perspective is that it allows individuals as well as organizations to define their identity. According to many researchers, narratives are significant for participants constructing the meaning of the organization. For people, stories about themselves support their understanding of who they are and what their skills, values, roles, and responsibilities are for them. Another positive aspect of storytelling is that it helps researchers to brief complex data. As Dahlstrom claims, these perspectives enables investigators to identify, select, and reduce important information from composite data. They can positively use the summarized material to convey a relevant message and influence their audience. On the other hand, other people believe that storytelling can implicate oppression, exploitation, and opposition. According to Gabriel, some stories may actually undermine and destroy meaning. People's belief can intentionally influence a story to generate a different meaning for their convenience. Likewise, this perspective can lead to misinterpretation and lies. The audience may all have different understanding of the story from what the storyteller is trying to convey. The meaning of the story could vary from person to person. Furthermore, the narrator can purposely reject the existence of facts, which creates an unreal story. Finally, another disadvantage is that storytellers can easily fail to communicate their intended message. A story cannot clearly be understood for many reasons, such as the disinterest of the audience toward the message or the lack of availability to listen to the story. The narration can also fail to transmit its meaning if it misses those important details that give sense to the story and if the storyteller lacks the abilities and skills to be convincing. The following video links to the previous idea in which the intended message fails to be properly communicated.
So today I want to share with you my experience as a single mother. As you all know, it's a very difficult thing to go through when you have children and you're by yourself. It's very difficult to find understanding people.
As we have seen, Jack, who is in the left side, decides to use his phone instead of paying attention to the professor's narration. This demonstrates his disinterest toward the narrator's story, caused by the fact that he is a man. He does not feel identified with the story and he fails to resonate.
To conclude, it is clear that narration and sense-making are present throughout various personal and professional activities. We believe storytelling is a reliable theory in analyzing interactions between individuals, despite its limitations and disadvantages. Overall, storytelling is a very applicable perspective for leading and managing change.